Good news, everyone. Patrick here from Evil Genius Zero, the YouTube channel and Facebook page. Please follow us on both if you're interested. I wanted to talk to you guys about another mutant topic. For whatever reason, I feel like I want to smack these bitches down. Um, and I can't explain that, actually. The reason I have a problem, particularly with mutants among superheroes, is that at the end of the day, they're still human, right? So, like the Green Lantern, he has this ring that gives him a magical power. Superman's a fucking alien. Um, Wonder Woman is like a Amazon type alien with like magical powers from the Greek gods. You know, that kind of thing. Sticking to Marvel a little bit, you know, the Fantastic Four. You know, they got their powers imbued on them by, you know, scientific accident. Same thing with Peter Parker, Spider Man, that kind of thing. The mutants, they're born that way. You know, they're Lady Gaga and up in this motherfucker, and they develop their power from a slight mutation, right? Because they can still fuck humans and produce kids, so they're still human, right? That's the definition. They can produce viable offspring that can also reproduce. You're human, but they have these very magical powers, and so the topic for today is actually fine motor skills, right? So, just take a little thought experiment with me. All right, this is gonna be a little bumpy ride, but you know, just go with me. Imagine, like I'm right-handed, right? Uh, Imagine writing with your other hand. So in my case, left-handed. 85% of the population right-handed, by the way. So I'm just gonna stick with right-handed for a while. Lefties, sorry, you know, I'm just working with what I got here. Okay, so imagine you're trying to write with your left hand, and I do, and serial killers have better handwriting, you know. So it's bad. Imagine, you know, you're in a car accident and you break your right wrist and you can't do a goddamn thing with that thing. You have to write. You have to clean your butt. You know, you have to beat it like Michael Jackson taught you to. Beat it, beat it, beat it, beat it. No one wants to be defeated. Sorry, had to happen. Um, so you gotta do all those things with this piece of shit here. This thing works so bad I wouldn't wipe my ass with it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, chances happen. That's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna do it, but um, I really don't know what I would do with that. It would be very difficult, at least the first several fucking times. Um, and so just think about the difference in fine motor skill between your left hand and your right hand. Again, caveman, keyboard. You know, like this is, I could do basic fucking shit with this. And anything else with this. I'd be a very, very sad person if that, you know, if that unfortunate mess ever happens to me. Fine motor skills. How is that important for mutants? Okay, so think about Jean Grey, right? She has telekinesis. She can move things with her mind. But that has to come from somewhere. You know, you have to have a force acted upon an object, right? So if you think about, in this instance, I have a finger, thumb. Okay? And they are all using friction and resistance to movement, holding onto the bottle, and you know, tension from me squeezing the bottle a little bit, and then the force, you know, of my arm lifting up is also able to lift this up, right? So if you have telekinesis, you know, maybe it's something like that where, you know, you have an energy field or something grabbing it, or maybe you're just able to, you know, generate forces lifting it up like this, you know, kind of thing, or maybe you're, you know, trying to pull kind of type deal. But at the end of the day, it's still a force acted upon an object or, you know, person or whatever you're lifting up, right? So the force, you have to have motor control over that force. And how developed would that be? Imagine if you suddenly had a tail when you're 13 or 14. Do you think you'd be able to write with it? Do you think you'd be able to lift real objects up with it? Because this isn't something that they are technically born with the mutation, but they typically develop later in life in particular. So, 13, 14 years old, you suddenly can move things with your mind and pick them up. Can you pick up one thing at a time? Because I can pick up this. I can pick up this. I can, I've got a remote control here. I can do all that, right? But there's a limit to how much I can do, and I'm kind of getting to that point right here. But and I also don't have to. But like, let's fuck around with Rocket, right? So I can get Rocket if I get this all right up here, and yeah, like I could do that. It's happening, but it's I'm walking 5 feet and this is falling the fuck out. So thanks, Rocket, for your lovely assistance. Zoidberg, you just keep on hanging out over there. Okay, so how many things can you do at once with this telekinesis? So could you lift up a car and a baby? Probably not, right? And that's another thing too. So when I lifted this up, this is like 24 ounces. Adding in other textures, other types of weights, it like really throws it off. Because, it's two different types of movement and control at the same time. Your brain is only so good at that. Let's say you're holding on for your dear fucking life on a cliff and your friend is right next to you. Can you use your mind to lift them up if you have telekinesis without letting go? And the answer to that is, I don't know, man. I mean, these people would have fine motor skill to do the things that these people are doing. They have fine motor skills like you wouldn't fucking believe. They're Matilda, good example, right? Matilda, not in X-Men, not in the mutants, but Matilda is basically a mutant. And I remember there was one scene where she has like a bunch of fucking Cheerios floating all around her in different directions. Now, she does this pretty early in the movie, and it's actually probably a neat training exercise if you have telekinesis. One of the things that they use to teach children fine motor skills with their fingers is Cheerios, right? Because you can pick it up and you can eat it, and it's great, right? Like, and so there's hundreds, maybe even maybe even 1,000 or two Cheerios in a box, and if you're able to do something like that, you can do really complex things if you can move, multiple objects in multiple different directions, right? And especially forming patterns and stuff like that, like she was in the movie. Like it was like two different, like a cyclone swirly thing. Anyways, so if you can do something like that, you're fucking brilliant telekinetic, right? Like Sue Storm would be a good example. The Invisible Woman from Fantastic Four. She can create force fields, and they function very similarly, right? So she can create these force fields, and you could technically push that force field back, move it forward, that kind of stuff. But it's like, it's one dimension, at least as far as I've ever seen it used. I'm not a big Fantastic Four fan. I've seen the first two movies, and maybe a couple of like cartoons or something. But so she's pushing, like this, as opposed to really grabbing things and able to finally manipulate them, right? So somebody comes running at her force field, it stops it, and she might even be able to push it back a little bit, but she can't really, again, grab and lift and pull and that kind of stuff. So there's different levels of that, and some people again are some characters, I should say, because they're not really people. Some characters are limited, like Sue Storm, and then others are really not. Like a good example of that would be Jean Grey, or like kind of in a different area, and I kind of gave them the pass over, like the Green Lantern, right? They could do kind of anything with their willpower, right? So, but all of those things would have attacks on your mental abilities. So if you're concentrating and creating like an armor around yourself, right? And you're also, creating this like giant fist that you're punching somebody with, you're not doing math along with that, right? You're not able to run. You're not able to do these other things because all these things take a mental tax on you. And sorry, I'm losing my train of thought there a little bit, but the fine motor skills, right? Can you do more than one thing at once? Back to the baby in the car example. If you're pushing the car up, that's tons of Newton force. If you're lifting the baby up, most likely what's going to happen is you're lifting the baby up with that same force. Imagine a dumbbell, right? So you're lifting the dumbbell up, and you're using both of your hands to do it. This is a fine motor skill, but it's a gross motor skill more likely. But you're doing this. Your gross motor skill is taking over for the fine motor skill, right? So you're lifting, and you might be a little uneven in the way that, the forces are lined out, and your body posture might be fucked up and that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, you are walking with the same, you're pulling the same amount of force. Imagine if you have to walk any kind of distance with grocery bags, right? And in your left hand, you have 10 pounds of grocery bags. You can lift that no problem, right? If you don't have an equal amount of weight on your right hand, you're going to start to struggle because it's your forces are not aligned, and even though it's more work for you to lift another 10 pounds on your right side, it distributes the force more evenly, and so your brain finds it easier to do that. So what's going to happen is you're lifting the car and the baby with the same amount of force applied, but the baby is much smaller and lighter. So this baby's gonna rocket the fuck out of there, and that nobody wants that to happen, man. Nobody wants that to happen at all. It's a dead baby. Let's be real. So, fine motor skills are really important for the abilities of mutants, particularly telekinetics, but they also play into other things. I kind of touched on it in an earlier video about Magneto. So in X-Men, the movie from 2000, Magneto is surrounded by police officers. They all have their guns drawn. They're all pointed at him. He yanks the guns out of their hands without any of them firing, which is like amazing if you think about it. But yanks them all out of his hands, turns them around, and has them pointed at all the police officers. And I think even cocks back the slide of those guns, which also is typically an unnecessary thing to happen. Like most police officers carry their guns with a bullet in the chamber, so cocking back doesn't actually do anything. It's just like a dramatic thing that most movies do, a completely unnecessary dramatic thing. So, like the Kardashians, completely unnecessary dramatic thing. So they cock back the gun. They're levitating the guns. Magneto is not, like, they call him Magneto, and he has these like powers of magnetism. He doesn't have powers of magnetism. He has telekinetic powers. Just like he can only do magnetic shit. Only on metal shit. He's lifting up the guns. They're levitating, not pulling back towards him like a magnet does. Think about what a magnet does if you use a magnet, right? A magnet pulls something. If you have another magnet that is similarly oriented, so if the north is facing this way, north is facing this way. If they're oppositely oriented, so north is facing this way, north is facing this way, they will resist each other and push against each other, right? I should do it this way. It makes more sense. So, but if this is south, it sucks even faster, right? Because that's the way they attract. Magnets only pull or push. That's all they do. They don't levitate. They don't, pull and push to cock. They don't, I guess like trigger pulling, that would just be another magnetic force, but the magnetic force would be not localized. Like, that's a fine motor skill. There's a finger, right? Like, if the reason that a trigger is like this over your finger and not like this over the entire handle of the gun is because it would be harder to squeeze, like not harder, but harder to not squeeze the gun, right? So he would be, you know, there's no way that he could fire the gun and aim it while hovering it, doing any of those things if it's just a magnetic power. He has telekinetic powers and very fine motor skills. You think about trying to hold more than 2 guns and fire them, right? So how many guns could you squeeze on your hands? You might be able to get 3, 4 if you really wanted to, and that would be super dangerous. Do not try that, because you're gonna hurt yourself. You would not be like even a very low caliber gun. It would you'd die. Okay, you're gonna die. You're gonna hurt somebody. Don't do what I just suggested as as a thought. Okay, but can't do it, right? He can hold 15, 20 objects and then also manipulate them simultaneously and, you know, do additional things with them, like pull the triggers or do the slides or whatever you need to do. So very, very, very fine motor skills, way beyond what you would imagine, right? And so that would be a totally different level of mutation, just on the basis of that alone, not just that he can like levitate fucking guns. So you have him. The biggest offender that I can think about, and I may have talked about this in the video. I made 4 versions of the previous video, so I don't really know what I said at this point, which is really bad. But it is what it is, guys. You know, hold it against me. That's what she said. Storm. And she is a badass character. You know, she's a cool lady. She's got an awesome silver mohawk. If I ever met her, I'd marry her. But her powers are awful. She's not a mutant. She's a magical character. Okay? She can gather clouds with her mind, just summon them and they come. Right? She can make rain happen. Right? She can make wind happen and manipulate and control the wind. Anytime that I'm out in the world, in the outside, and there's wind, it's coming from like 17 different directions, right? Like usually it's like this way and that way, and it's gusting all over the place on the low. You know, I get that it's, again, and I know I said this in some video, but I get that in the upper atmosphere it's like, it's more patterned, but down on the ground, like wind gusts all over the place, and she's able to find motor control the wind and direct it at people so that they like have trouble walking forward and pushing them back, and she's able to like ride it with like a long dress, you know, that is tailored well, you know, which is just crazy that she can ride the wind. Like, think about that. Like, it's very fine motor skill. And she's also riding the wind. She has to, like, fly and direct herself. And the complexity of that is just crazy. Like, if she had to jump one building to another and was able to direct an upstream of air, I guess, like, that makes sense to me. Like, she can just jump and like kind of like catch it as she's like sliding across, kind of thing. That makes sense to me. But like, oh, I'm just on the ground and float up. I don't like that at all. And then like, it seems like almost like she can aim lightning to some extent. These are magical powers. These are not like, I have a tumor that is able to make me smarter, or my muscles are like 3 times as dense, and so I'm 3 times as strong as I should look. But in reality, like, it's not like you would be suddenly strong. You would just be thinner to be at the same, strength, right? Mutant powers are magic. That's all I'm saying. This video's been 20 minutes. It's my longest video to date. I went off on like 17 tangents. I hope you guys enjoy it. I feel very comfortable with this video. I hope you all like it, and let me know what you think. All right. Sound off in the comments below. Follow me, like, share if you are so inclined, and expect some more fun videos to come. I think my next video is going to be the Lost video. So thanks for talking it out, bitch.